Hello, and welcome to another episode of Many Minds Therapy Hub. Today, we're going to talk about something that has really affected our EFT community with the passing of EFT's founder, creator, Sue Johnson. I think it'd be great if we just took a little bit of time to kind of honor her memory and maybe talk a little bit about EFT or like the effects that it's had in our own lives or on our clinical practice.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And for those that don't know what EFT stands for, it's emotionally focused therapy, and was founded by a British wonderful clinical psychologist who I think had I don't know, sent from whatever belief system you may have, but something lit up and had this wonderful, brilliant idea of developing this modality that a lot of us in the community have really embraced. And we have integrated it in quite a lot of, in the way we do our own work with our clients and personally in my life too.
Yeah, and I did my EFT externship, which is basically like level 1 training with Sue Johnson, and she was really brilliant, and she was a spitfire, and she was so funny and charismatic and spicy, and she looked exactly like Bonnie Raitt. Yeah, she was great. I really enjoyed learning from her. So sad she's gone.
But what an amazing legacy that she leaves behind. I was talking to one of my friends who's also an EFT therapist the other day about just the legacy that she leaves behind. And I know that her work just in my own life has changed the trajectory of my family that will impact generations, right? And from this brilliant woman's work. And I know that I'm not the only one who's had this kind of experience and benefited from her brilliance.
Yeah. I love that you use the word also spicy, Rosie, because I do recall talking about legacy, Laura. I recall her spiciness because she was so much she's so passionate about the work and how much she truly believed in it that anything that seemed the slightest it wouldn't go with the model, somehow she probably made it work. And it's of course it's gonna work this way. So I remember the spiciness in that way as well. Yeah, I was actually just sitting with my daughter. It was a couple nights. What days today? Okay, a couple nights ago. I was sitting with her and I was talking to her about movies and things like that. She's really into movies, and we were talking about Encanto. I couldn't remember the name of the movie then. And talking about legacy, I mean, I clearly don't know whether it is creators knew EFT and Sue Johnson or anything, but the moment I watched that movie, I was like, oh, there is our work. There is EFT all over this movie. And just the thought that I could sit with my own child and say, hey, there's a lot of this modality that I actually use in therapy. And if you learn some of this and you're really curious about creating movies and this, and things that are powerful, Encanto is a really good one to really look for. That one is such a beautiful one.
Yeah, and maybe for the people that are listening that don't know anything about emotionally focused therapy, how do you each define that?
Magic. How many sentences? The question is how many sentences? It's very I'm with you right now. That's the phrase that I would use for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it really helped me to see it's an attachment-based model, right? And it helped me to see that that's like the water that we swim in. That's the context of everything for me. When something's coming up, it's when I'm struggling with something personally or with a client, you know, if a client's struggling with something, there's almost always a relational component to it. And helping people to learn how to build secure attachments, to find safety and in relationships is life altering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And understanding kind of like the why, right? Being able to, at least for me, wrap my arms around something and kind of understand it, it makes it less scary.
Yeah.
Right. So people say oftentimes like, oh, emotions are so unpredictable. Emotions are not logical. Well, actually they are.
Mhm.
They are, right? Because there's like this whole physiological chain reaction, right? That happens and it's predictable. And so when we start being able to identify like how these different triggers or cues or things that we're reacting to kind of fit, and we can start laying that out into what we would call like a negative pattern or a negative cycle of interaction that we either have like with ourselves or someone else, like it really makes sense. And being able to um, see that, like actually like diagram it out and stuff has been so helpful. And working with clients, just watching the realization, right? That moment that something clicks, like again, it's like magic. It's like, oh, okay, this actually makes sense. Like I'm not just getting blown around by the wind. Like here, if I can see what this is, if this can make sense to me, then maybe I can do something to change that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in couples work, it's really powerful too, because we get to understand like why, like what is activating for me and what my partner's doing and why, like what are the deeper layers of that and how am I protecting myself and what, you know, like what is that cycle that we're caught in that's getting in the way of the kind of connection that we want. And I think some other couples, I mean, there are a lot of really beautiful couples models, but I think that this one by far is my favorite because it doesn't, you're not like wading into the weeds of like weighing into what's fair. It's like helping couples to really be able to see and hear each other so that most people have the tools. It's they don't really need us to decide like who's doing the chore, right? It's more like can I feel heard and seen so that we can talk about this, so you can understand why I feel so unsupported when you don't take out the trash, or the deeper layers of that, right? We're getting in a fight over something silly, but it's not the something silly, it's the 10 layers deep of I feel alone.
Yeah, but they oftentimes don't even recognize that, right? It's just that they are definitely having that bodily response. And so maybe I have a couple who comes in and it's like, well, they don't do their fair share around the house. Well, it's not actually about that, right? Because we can take whatever this argument about the dishes or I don't know who's doing the laundry or what, like you can plug and play the content. The content doesn't really matter. And we can change the content, sure, but the process is still broken, right? And so even if we figure out a schedule for who's going to do the dishes on one night, the same pattern is going to show up in different areas of their life. And then the couple is going to be wondering, well, we fixed this one thing, but why am I still just feeling so unhappy or disconnected?
Yeah, it really helps you get to the root of like the actual issue instead of like the surface level. It helps you really dive in deeper.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to what you're both are saying is sometimes couples come in and they're like, just give me the fix, please. And I'm like, you already have a lot of tools that you can use, and I can tell you how to break it down and I can tell you what to do to make it better, but that's not going to really take care of anything. And that's what I really do love about EFT is that, yeah, I can tell you what to do and I can see what could be fair or unfair, but what will that do for you tomorrow morning? And by breaking down the process and really organizing it for them and helping them experience it, because I tell oftentimes, I say, you have to really experience it. I can't just like write down a list of your process and I can do that and give it to you. And again, that's just another quick fix or tool. But unless you really have this felt experience of being like heard and seen and understood, and that you really matter in your relationship, that kind of back to that physiological, response that sometimes we have, and learning how to actually cue onto those, because sometimes we don't really even know that. That's not going to go away. That's going to remain. And that's what I really love about EFT. It really helps kind of like at that cognitive level, but also deeper into the emotions and also the physiological responses that we have and that come up. And I use it. What I love is that I can actually teach little kids about it. It's not just for like adults. You can teach
Right.
little kids. Do you know what's coming up when you're getting upset? Do you know what happens in your body? And they're like, no. And I love that. Like you can bring that onto like any age, and how our relationships really impact how we feel in the world.
Yeah, there's wisdom in our emotions,
Mm-hmm.
plus, what our truth is or what our needs are or what our boundaries are. And
Mm-hmm.
we might have been socialized to try to suppress those things, but your body's still
Yeah.
going to communicate that to you.
Yeah.
I like to tell my clients that like we're literally in therapy, we're like literally rewiring your brain. Because I mean, really that's what we're doing, which is
Mm-hmm.
so like mind-boggling to think
Mm-hmm.
about, right? But the like EFT
Yeah.
has this experiential component, right? And it's the actual experiencing. Like we can know something backwards, forwards, sideways, right? There's a difference between like the cognitive knowledge and then like the felt sense in
Yeah.
in our body, right? And so in EFT, whether it's um, with an individual, with partners, or within families, being able to have someone there who is attuned, emotionally
Mm-hmm.
attuned to you, and can kind of hold you in that space where you're feeling seen and heard, and that you really feel like you matter, like that is the magic that starts creating
Yeah.
like changes in our brains. And that is so cool to, well, at least for me, it's so cool because I just totally nerd out on that kind of stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also really beautiful that the model helps not only, if you're doing couples work, right? Like it teaches couples to be that for each other, be that attuned other that
Mm-hmm.
makes you feel heard. And isn't that what we all want, right? To feel heard and like we matter, to feel like if I reach, in romantic relationships or in any kind of relationship, I want to know that if I reach for you, you're gonna care and you're gonna be responsive, that you're accessible, right? She talks about accessible, responsive, and engaged. And a lot of the time we have all of these layers of protection that prevent us from being able to do that in our relationships. And not only do we get that from the therapist, but we learn how to be that for our people.
Mm-hmm.
And ourselves.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
My one of my friends who is also an EFT therapist and happens to be really into like circus performing gave
Mm-hmm.
this really amazing analogy. about being on the trapeze, right? So, and getting back to like accessible, responsive, and engaged, right? So if we're looking at accessible, before we like make that jump, we want to make sure that, you know, our person is ready to catch us, right? Because if we're like swinging on the trapeze, you have to be like aligned, because if you're not, like, you're going to miss each other, right? So you have to make sure that this person over here is ready to catch you before, and like in the right place before you let go, so that they can catch you, right? So, and I love that. That is like one of my favorite analogies. Like that the visuals on that just make so much sense, because we've all seen, even if it's on a cartoon, we've seen like trapeze work, right? And so I think that just really helps to kind of bring that concept into focus.
Yeah.
Strong visual.
If I risk, are you going to be there with me?
Yes.
Yeah. Gottman talks about like the more that a partner catches when someone's reaching, like understands when someone's reaching, the more secure the relationship is, right? So there's that's like where that kind of comes into play, right? We might not always know that it's a reach. It might just be something silly, like our partner's like, look at this bird, that might seem totally insignificant, but that's them like being vulnerable in that moment of like, can you care about this thing I care about? Yeah.
I love that. And it may look insignificant to one partner, you know. I like to highlight that, because sometimes people don't understand, like you're saying, the reach. And it's like, well, it may not necessarily be significant for you, but it's for your partner. And then more, you know, going back to what you were saying about being responsive, the more one partner is responsive to the other, and the other one maybe has a history of not reaching out, that actually helps the other partner slowly. Also, kind of like you're talking about rewiring. Say, okay, this person is risking and I'm there for them. Let me try and risk a little bit. So kind of like that encourages the other partner in the relationship to also reach out gently and see if they can also respond, which is kind of part of that dance of creating the reciprocal process in the relationship.
Yes, and like making that reach, or like making that jump at a time where our other person is not in a place where they're prepared to catch us, we're gonna fall, and it's gonna
that's a
hurt,
hard one,
right? And is going to reinforce this kind of belief that maybe they're not there for me, or they don't care, or maybe I don't matter, right? Whereas if
or it's only one way relationship,
right, and really that might not be the case at all. It's just that there wasn't that attunement there, right? It's like, absolutely, I want to catch you, and like I'm not in the headspace to have that conversation. Maybe there's something serious that's going on, and my like attention is right there, right? And I want to be here with you. Yeah, absolutely. But if I'm here and then you try to get my attention and like pull me over here, like that's a transition that I'm just not, like, I need a minute, right? And so making sure that our partner is accessible before we jump is so important.
right? Like I want to be able to see that my partner is there before I actually get on the trapeze, or that there is a safety net on the bottom before I actually get on it, because there is no way I'm going to risk. And it's a tricky thing to do, because oftentimes we really don't understand. We really don't know, like, what tells you, what's a cue that you know that your partner, or like there's that net down set for you to get on the trapeze, and then if you fall, you're going to be safe. Sometimes we really don't understand. And that's what I love about EFT, is that it really helps and teaches you, okay, there are times that your partner may not, and it's impossible to be there 100% of the time. You know, we have 1,000 things. Like right now, if I had somebody reach out to me, I would probably like not be there, because I have allergies and this and that, and I'm like, I don't know that I can actually attune to you right this second. And there are cues to that if we learn through the process, like, okay, I can see, I'm also learning how to attune to myself and what I need, but I'm also learning to attune to you. So I can read cues that maybe you're not ready for me to jump.
Right.
Or maybe I can ask and say, hey, let me know when you're ready.
Yeah.
I need to risk, you know.
But also acknowledging that just even that ask can feel really risky,
It,
right? If we've
it
been
is.
shut down so many times before. And so recognizing that if our partner is even asking us that,
That
hey,
is a risk.
right, that in itself is
Yeah.
risky.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you can have that awareness and say, like, oh, I'm actually in the middle of something, but I would love to talk to you in 10 minutes or something, right? Like, then you're still catching them, even if you're not available perfectly in the exact moment. And I think, too, another piece of it is learning how to make repairs. Like, it's really normal and healthy. I mean, every relationship is going to have ruptures, but knowing how to repair, like I always tell the couples that I work with, like, the goal is not for you to never fight again. And the goal is like, can we get you to a place where you keep sight of your love for each other when you're having conflict, and you're able to repair really well and thoroughly and quickly, right? That it's not like a week of stonewalling, or like not talking, or it's not a whatever, like you're not yelling at each other or losing sight of that love that you have for each other.
And like steel, if we were looking at steel, like steel is strong, right? But what makes steel stronger? When it's tempered, right? So it has to go through the fire in order to gain the strength. And I kind of apply that to relationships too. And just what you were talking about, Rosie, is that the goal is not to not ever fight, right? But that repair that happens is like the steel becoming stronger, right? Because it has been through this fire. It's been through this argument, this conflict or whatever, and coming out on the other side and learning how to reconnect builds stronger relationships.
Yeah.
But isn't all of this amazing though? Like, look at the conversation that we're having, and it's all coming from, bringing this back to Sue, this just like brilliant idea that somehow was born, and she really went on to just continue to develop in, and with the help of other many researchers and clinicians, um, it really has expanded to, I mean, it's used widely internationally. Yeah.
And I love also too that there is so much research behind it, because lots of people have lots of great ideas. Lots of people have ideas that work, but then also like, okay, like where's the proof, right? Like where's the data actually on that is not just anecdotal, right? And so Sue worked so hard to make sure to gain that data.
That it was just not just phenomenological, a
Right.
phenomenon that happened in the room with the clinician and the clients, but to give whoever needed proof that it actually worked. So it really is backed up by research.
Yes, by a lot of research. And not just in the US, right? There's research like globally. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And longitudinal research also, not just, they've gone back to interview couples that have gone through the process and kind of just seeing how they are doing years after.
Yeah. And I think too, like something that I remember from that level 1 training that really stuck with me is like, this is a model that sticks, right? Like, this isn't a model where you're like, okay, we did the thing and then we're back in that place. It's like, once you feel what it's like to really feel connected to your partner, like that's what you're always going to be trying to get back to, even if you're in a rough place. Like, okay, we that was so good when we were there, right? Like we can do that, and I really want to. And I think that is so powerful, right? Because if it's just surface level, right? If we just have the lists and we just have like weighed out what is what and who's carrying what, then
Yeah.
it's not deep enough. It doesn't stick in the same way. And
Which
yeah,
speaks volumes to the power of like just when you put in the heart and the emotions that we really, oftentimes we've run away from them, but it really speaks to how powerful it is to actually, just
mhm,
feel
yeah, yeah,
even negative emotions. Oftentimes people experience negative emotion. I'm like, good for you. I'm like, I'm with you right now. Yes, feel
yeah,
those.
yeah.
Yeah.
Having a secure attachment too,
Mm-hmm.
like they talk about it being a safe haven and
Mm-hmm.
a secure base, right? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a safe haven, then you have somebody to talk to when you're having a hard time, right? Like when you're going through really painful things in your life or grief or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? You have somebody to witness that and be with you through that, whether that, hopefully somebody in your life, but also a therapist, right? And
Yeah, yeah. I love how she brought in a lot, Bowlby's work, because this is really coming from Ainsworth and Bowlby's work,
yeah,
and how she was able to really plug that in and build that magic potion.
yeah. I don't think we have
Yeah,
really understood the depth of
yeah,
power of what they were showing us with that work, right?
yeah.
Like, what did that really mean? Like, okay, we know about
Mm-hmm,
attachment, but I don't think we
mm-hmm,
really got the level
mm-hmm.
of impact that has on us throughout our life. Like, it's
Yeah,
not just when you're a kid, like that
yeah,
carries through
yeah,
forever.
yeah.
And I think too, like the secure base piece, it's like we are more when we have a soft landing place, we're
Mm-hmm,
safer to take risks in our lives, to go for the things we want because we have
yeah,
some to fall back with, right?
Right,
yeah,
and that's what actually allows us to take those risks, right? Because we know that there is safety. It's like
Yeah,
we can venture out further into the world
yeah,
because we know that we have a safe place to come back to.
yeah,
It's like this invisible tethered, right? Tether that I'm not going to be just like lost into the big wide world. Is that
mm-hmm,
there's a place that calls me home. There's
totally.
a place,
yeah.
there's a person that is my home.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah,
interconnection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. And it's safe for me to take risks because if I fall or I make a fool of myself, I have someone that loves me and values me,
mm-hmm,
can help me through that.
And who's going to validate what I'm feeling, right? It doesn't
mm-hmm.
have to make sense to them. They don't have to like it, but they can like trust that I'm experiencing what I say that I'm experiencing and just be there with me in that moment. They don't have to fix it. They just have to see me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, makes me take a big breath.
Magic.
yeah.
Yeah, it is really magical. And I love because, again, going back to how she pulled in and integrated attachment, it's risk, emotional risk, but also kind of like that physical, like getting away. When you think about feeling safe, or having safe people in your life, and that's kind of like that interdependence. It's like you don't have to be next to your safe person. You can be like miles away from your safe person that if you visualize them, you know in times of need, you can actually have again that felt sense, that felt security that you need, or that you will go back and things are going to be okay because you're secure. Yeah,
Yes.
and they're okay.
Yeah,
But when you don't have that, then that's when we kind of like get into these dynamics and relationships that is like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, and then you feel controlled, or you feel tight, or you feel all of this not so very pleasant, like, feelings in relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't feel safe emotionally, to even share that how you feel about it. It's all of that.
Yeah. So then you're just there alone.
Yeah.
Alone. Yeah. With a lot of longings that are just not met. Because
Yeah.
you have no one safe enough to talk about those and say, this is what I want.
Right.
Yeah. No one affirming that you matter and that you're seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It makes me think of this quote. Well, I saw this like snippet of an interview with Gabor Mate, and someone asked him, like, is it possible to raise a child without trauma? And he said something along the lines of, if you're asking if it's possible to raise a child without painful experiences, no, that's just a part of life. But if your trauma is not that, right? It's going through that alone. It's going through those hard things without having somebody that sees us, that carries us through that, right? Like it doesn't become trauma symptoms if we have safe places, safe relationships to process the hard things, the painful, traumatic things we go through.
Yeah. So thanks, Sue Johnson, and thanks to all the researchers.
Yeah, what a magical human. Spicy, magical human.
I still love the spicy. It's a good word.
Felt that she was a spitfire.
Yeah. Okay, I think any last words today? I'm looking at our time, we're coming to an end. We all really just wanted to spend some time and then really honor her memory and all the beautiful things that, she's left for us. Yeah,
what a special lady.
Okay. Then until next time.
Bye.
Bye.